fall colors are starting to come out in Texas. Things are looking brown and kind of dried out. And the sun showing a trace of a 22-degree halo and a sundog. There it is off to the right side. You can kind of pick those things out with this diagram. Well, here's the pattern across the U.S. It is a mild pattern. We're starting to get a lee side trough forming east of Colorado, indicating an increase in the upper level westerlies. And this kind of resembles a mild winter pattern. This exact pattern reminds me of trips up to Denver in February to go to the Chaser Conference. The weather is often very much like this on the drive up. You can see the mild conditions out there in Colorado, 80s and fair westerly flow. Up to the north, we got a Alberta clipper coming out of Manitoba. That looks like it's heading for the Great Lakes, because if you look at the warm front, all the cold air is located right up here. The warm air is right there in the central U.S., and that's going to put the jet roughly in between, kind of like that. And that gives you your steering flow. The weather systems are going to move along that axis. And that gets into a concept called the thermal wind. And that kind of follows, to a certain extent, the thickness pattern, although it's not exactly the same thing. Also in the Pacific Northwest, another storm system there. That'll be coming onshore tonight and moving into British Columbia and northern Washington. And temperatures appear to range from 25 up there at Caribou, Maine, to looks like 90 degrees in Blythe, California. The upper level charts showing zonal flow across North America. That means the flow is primarily east to west with very little north-south component. And also the jetlets outline that. Fortunately, they put isotachs on this chart. For example, this looks like the 160 isotach. And there it is, the polar front way up north. But it looks like there is a branch down to the south, and that is possibly the subtropical jet. It is also active out in the Caribbean. We've got Tropical Storm Eta. We've never had a storm named Eta, and there it is. That came on shore last night as a Category 4 hurricane in northeast Nicaragua, right around here. Unfortunately, Nicaragua is off the edge of the CONUS sector, so we don't really get it from College DuPage, and it's already expired from GSFC, so we're not able to take a look at that, unfortunately. But what is important is it will start drifting north into the northwestern Caribbean over the weekend, and then towards the beginning of next week it should be a tropical storm in the Florida Keys. Forecast winds as it approaches the Keys look to be about 50 knots. Next week, of course, is pretty far away, so there's still uncertainty what will happen with the storm, but we'll check back tomorrow and on Friday to see what we're looking at. A quick check of conditions up in Canada. It is cold, but I would call this seasonal temperatures. I mean, it's only in the mid-40s in Edmonton. That's not particularly cold. Teens and 20s up in Quebec. That's not particularly cold either. And at the moment, I don't see a whole lot of polar air generation going on. It is a different story up there in Alaska near the top left corner. Let's see, we've got minus 19 around Fairbanks, minus 17 around Dawson. So yeah, here we are generating some Arctic air in the Yukon River Basin. And no, that's not maritime tropical air. That's an error. Be gone. Snow depth looking like this. You can see that the prairies are pretty much devoid of snow, but you go up north of there and we've got anywhere from 3 to 10 inches and locally maybe 12 to 15. We can see that tonight there is going to be some snow coming down in northern Manitoba. And as that Pacific system works eastward, some snow being dumped in the northern prairies. But it looks like around Sunday, as that next Pacific system comes through, Montana getting some heavy snow all the way up towards Manitoba. And let's see what's coming up next. Little mountain snow there late next week. And that tracks into the Central Plains for Thursday and Friday. Let's see how it totals up at the end of the period. That's not a whole lot of snow, but it is something. So with that new fresh snowfall entering the mix, I think we'll see some polar air being generated maybe in about a week up north. So let's put it together. The 850 millibar temperature anomaly, a good way to track the progression of air masses. So here we can see all that warm downslope flow coming into the Great Lakes. Temperatures there, 15 Celsius, above normal. And then you can see all the cold conditions up there in Alaska. Let's bring that forward. You can see that Pacific system coming on shore, bringing a new cold air mass into Washington and British Columbia. So the fronts are going to be looking kind of like that. Bring that up north, and that's kind of what it looks like at 850. So let's see what happens. This is Thursday. Let's go into the weekend. Yeah, it looks pretty stormy there in California. That's going to be some new weather for them. So we're going to start looking at that a little more closely. Up north, here's the next system coming together. That looks a little bit like an Alberta Clipper. And remember, Saturday or Sunday, we were looking for a lot of snow right in this area here. Try that again. Okay, there you go. Ahead of that, yeah, there's that downslope flow continuing. Going into Saturday and Sunday, it looks like most of our energy is going to be coming from the Pacific there. That Pacific system crosses the Rockies over the weekend. Up to the north, warm front, and that puts this whole area under isentropic lift. And that's going to be initially in the warm conveyor belt, and that's where we're going to see the snow start developing there in Montana. As that passes, we will get the generation of polar air. You can see that coming together Monday and Tuesday, and that initially sweeps into the northern plains. Looks like another reinforcing shot of cold air working eastward across the Four Corners region. That cold air doesn't really make too much progress eastward before modifying. You can see the front is looking like that by midweek, not quite making it to Texas. Meanwhile, that looks like the remains of Eta coming northward, so we'll watch that too. And here it looks like round number 2 of Arctic air developing up in the Canadian prairies about 1 week from now. And you can see that blasting southeastward into the Dakotas around Thursday next week. That'll probably move a little further south into the south-central U.S. before modifying next week. So where does that leave us? Well, looks like a lot of Pacific air coming inland. So I think we'll see more chances of snow there in Canada, some more cold air generation, but that's really too far off to be too concerned with. And let's see. Yeah, there's Eta. Let's take a look down here in the Caribbean. This is the GFS forecast for Eta. The GFS bringing that into Miami, a little further north in the NHC track, but that's really too far out. We'll just have to see what happens over the weekend. And then you can see it sitting there in the Gulf, and that's probably getting a little bit too far out to trust as far as the models go. And then we'll just take a quick look at the large-scale patterns. You can see that big trough coming into California there, driving that Pacific system inland. So a very powerful system there in the southern Rockies that'll move eastward. There comes round number 2 out of Canada, up there in Montana, later next week. And then it looks like by next weekend, not this weekend, but the next one, we get into sort of a zonal pattern. There it is right there. Cut off low off California. And looks like that kind of breaks up, and then things get active out west. towards Thanksgiving. And when is Thanksgiving? All right, November 26th. So that's well beyond the range of the GFS. So let's take a look at how the charts are going to look tomorrow. So when we do the show, the map is going to be looking kind of like this. There comes that cold front. And we know that that's going to be progressing southeast. And then things get really interesting towards Friday. So we are going to take a very close look at this later in the week, and because I find these Western systems really fascinating. They're very challenging to find using surface charts. There's a lot that goes on aloft that differs from what's going on at the surface. A lot of times the upper level patterns outrun the surface fields. And then we can see by Saturday, well, there's no video on Saturday. If I have time, I might try to put one out just for fun. We'll see how that goes. And then for Sunday, that will be coming out into the northern plains. So there's that flow back in behind it. And then it looks like the tail end will be picking up a new wave towards midweek. And we may get some showers in the south central U.S. And looks like maybe some winter weather from Nebraska up towards Wisconsin. So what you've seen there is an example of the charts that I go through on a very quiet pattern like this. I'm not too concerned about the surface patterns. I'm more interested in the air masses and the upper levels. So when the weather is quiet like this, you might want to refer to this video, because that's how I would start breaking apart what's happening. Okay, that's all I got for this edition of Forecast Lab. Thanks again for joining. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.